Hey, so you want to become a Scrum Master and you're currently a dev. What are my thoughts on this and what is so different about the two roles? Jordan here. So I have been a software engineer for a long time, right? But now I am a TPM. In my day to day, I would say I'm more of a Scrum Master, but this is my role. So some of the questions I get asked a lot is, oh, why did you make that change? And also, how did you go about making that change? And another one is, what does your day to day look like now that you're a TPM? And how does that differ from when you were a software engineer? You were an individual contributor in the capacity of writing code and ensuring that that goes to production. So my day to day, I would say, it is still centered around ensuring that the software works, it gets to production, and the customers are happy with it, right? I think as a software engineer, I also did not want to have bugs coming back and someone saying, hey, I mean, that's your code. But I think in the day to day, the overall big goal as a TPM and as a software engineer is to ensure that your solution is good, it is safe, and it is getting out there to the person who is waiting on it, the person paying the bills. But for me, there are like three main things that, come to the top of my mind when I think about how it is so different from being a software engineer and being a TPM. And the first of those is definitely stakeholder management. Because when I was a software engineer, I had to think about a lot less in terms of stakeholder management. It was mainly my manager or the person I needed some results from, right? And sometimes for some tasks, I had no one who I needed to communicate with. It was just me and the code and, testing and, marking that as ready. So I really didn't have to do that much interaction with other people to say, give me this or here's this or let's test in my day-to-day, in many of my roles. So that was a bit different because now I find my day-to-day interacting with so many stakeholders. I remember when we were devs and a couple of my friends who would always say, you know what, I want to become a manager because it's just meetings. And you can imagine the number of meetings we're in now, them being, more than this or double this. So it was just not something we were keen on doing because we just did not want to have these many meetings. So yes, I do have a lot more meetings, but I would say it is important because we're dealing with stakeholder management as a TPM, whereas in the big organizations that I worked in, I never had to do that much of stakeholder management. So when I say stakeholders and when I say stakeholder management, what do you really think I mean, right? Well, what I mean is that I may have to talk to not just the developer who you need something from. I may have to talk to his or her manager. I may have to speak to the architect on your behalf. I may also be trying to get some feedback about something that we built from the business to ensure I can pass that feedback back to you. I may have to go even a bit higher and higher levels to get communication from what it is we're moving forward in terms of the roadmap, or trying to ensure that that is broken down enough or that I understand it enough so that I can use that knowledge in my day-to-day while we're interacting, while we're doing our delivery, right? So it's a lot more stakeholder management. I have a lot more teeth in the game, if I can say that. Inevitably, I always felt responsible for the things I delivered as a developer, but I feel also responsible for everything that my entire team delivers, because even though I'm not doing it myself, I cannot give the sign off and say, hey, I tested this. I have no guarantee. It's just trusting the team, but still I feel a lot more responsible when things don't go the correct way or there's a problem, etc. And sometimes when that hits back or, it blows back, I'll sometimes have to say, I'll take that because there's something I could have done to ensure that it did not actually go to production. So yeah, Number one is definitely stakeholder management. Number two, I would say, would be around, of course, what my day-to-day activity recoding really is. I think this is the most straightforward one. There are TPM roles or Scrum Master roles, depending on the org, where people have told me that they are doing code reviews, they are reviewing merge requests, they are doing testing. But in my role, I don't do those items regularly. There are times I will peak, but I mean, it's not really in my role. So definitely I'm not coding, and I'm not doing a lot of the activities surrounding that. So I can't tell you for sure that you will not have a role, or you will not find a role as a TPM or as a Scrum Master or even an engineering manager, director in a company where coding won't be a part of it. I can't tell you that. Maybe it would be best for you if you're coming from a dev background, if you can find an org that gives you that ability to even, tinker on the side to kind of keep your skills intact. But for me personally, there's definitely no coding. There's definitely not me bringing up my workspace or testing something, debugging something. That's just not in my day-to-day. Do I miss it? Part of me does. I have been doing some side projects, which means, I get to get it out of my system a little bit. I've been doing some more creative things as well. And I try to think or, problem solve in my head around some things that arise. So that's what I do to keep mentally stay sane. But there's definitely no coding for me in my day to day. The third thing that I think it's definitely different is the enterprise thinking. So for one of my previous companies, we talked a lot about enterprise thinking. How everything that you do, it bubbles up and how it impacts the entire enterprise, the core business, and how that company makes money. And I can say I try to understand as a dev, and I think in smaller companies like startups or even a 50 to 200 person company, you can see it a lot more because what you do, it comes back to you faster, definitely faster. But when you're in bigger companies, sometimes you struggle with understanding how it is that this little thing that I'm doing, it bubbles up to the enterprise. Even when they tell you the main objectives and they tell you this and that, it's just so difficult sometimes to see how does this little thing that I do that enhances the customer's experience, how does it bubble up to help the enterprise make money, help them their core business, help them fulfill their mission, and eventually pays me, right? But in my current role as a TPM or a Scrum Master or someone who interacts a bit more with the business stakeholders, I think I have to think a lot more about the enterprise, about how this company makes money and how the work I do helps or hinders them from making that money. So I think enterprise thinking is definitely a mindset. It's a mindset that takes some time to get into. And it's a mindset that's even more important in some companies than others. But it's definitely something that I've found myself going back to a lot more, And it has kind of fueled my need now to read a little bit wider to the lean impact or, the startup impact or just books that, that just gets me thinking a little bit about broadening the scope of my thinking. It's not about the framework anymore. It's not about how to solve this with this tool. It's about how to solve it in a way that it's not going to come back. It's not going to reoccur, and solve it in a way where there is no harm to the customers, and there in fact it adds value, right? In the end, on the lower level, when you're looking at, let's say there's a bug in the page, you may be thinking about whether or not you're going to upgrade the version of jQuery, or if Angular is the best solution, or you're going to write a promise, etc. You're thinking about solving this. But at the enterprise level, it's how solving this issue really bubbles up into the bigger picture. So I've had to be thinking a lot more about the enterprise wide goal and how I fit into that, even if I'm one among 5,000 or 10,000 employees, is still something that I've been thinking about a lot more as a TPM. So yeah, that's three of the differences I see that are like top of mind when it comes to being a TPM or being a developer, or when I was a developer, because of course I'm speaking about my personal experience. And if there's something I could say I miss about being a developer, I would say, as I said, I do a couple things on the side, but I'm not doing thinking at that level, like which framework I'm going to use now, and I do miss that sometimes. I do. But if there's one thing I could say I would miss, if I was no longer TPM and I went back to development, is definitely thinking outside of my little fix this now box, especially when it comes to thinking or appreciating what is happening in the minds of various stakeholders as a problem comes up, a problem to solve. Thinking about the potential revenue stream or different avenue of business, or even a defect impact, thinking about, oh, people are going to abandon our platform or we're going to lose money, etc. Right? So I would definitely kind of miss that one. Yeah, I think that's it. That's my main thoughts around the differences. For anyone who's thinking to change, there are many areas in tech, and for me, I didn't even think about being a TPM. I became Scrum certified way before that. I even got a role officially as a TPM, and I'm Scrum Master certified. This is a Scrum org, and Safe Scrum Master as well. And I would say I embrace my day to day. I do love what I do. And if it is something you're thinking about trying out, just go for it. Just go on those websites, look at one of those courses, or follow people like me or other people who have transitioned, and look at whether or not what they're doing for their day to day is something that really speaks to you, before you go and make that move. Okay, all right, thanks for watching.